All right. Glad you all are here tonight for part 3 of the Advent Bible study, the biblical practice of hope. Does anybody have any questions or any comments before we get started?
Weren't we supposed to go through the week thinking where we see hope?
Yes.
Okay.
But first, let me back up just a little bit before we do that, and remind folks what how the person who has written this study, whose name eludes me but will come out in a minute here, how she defines hope. She says that Christian hope is not wishful thinking or a feathery thing perched delicately on our souls. Hope beyond hope is like a strong rope that pulls us up and guides us to safety. Christian hope does not rely on our human will and insight, good luck, or 1,000 positive thoughts to keep us buoyed when pain lodges in our path. Hope beyond hope comes from the faithfulness of God, as near as a taut rope gripped by a farmer searching for home in the deep of winter storm. When we are lost and can't feel the ground beneath us or see the destination ahead, we will find hope when we turn to our right and to our left, look above and beneath us, gaze ahead and look behind us. We will see God. We will meet Christ, God with us. We will stretch out our searching hands and find that Jesus has already taken hold of us. We will consider the expansive contours of hope as we follow Jesus with these practices. So Sunday we lit Advent candles. Let's see if this is going to work. Candles, nope, didn't work. All right. So how can we share hope? When others are weary and broken, we strengthen them. The candle that takes its light from another has light to share. How can we share hope? When we are weary and tired, we lean on the hope others provide. Jesus says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." In this third week of Advent, let us light a candle to share hope. Let's see if this works. Ha!
There we go.
There we go. The first candle of, what is it? Hearing hope.
Seeing hope.
Sharing hope.
Sharing.
That didn't work last week. All right, so yes, Desta, when or where did you all see hope this week?
I think I would have to share a story.
Okay.
My cousin, or his wife, is out in Montana, and apparently they had a neighbor who was a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
He's retired, he's in his 60s, and had a brain tumor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't have the doctors in that town, which is about as big as Leesburg, to do brain surgery. So they had to go all the way out to Seattle, Washington.
Wow, that's a long way to go.
To have it done. So they did have it done, and they said that he probably would have maybe some speech problems and maybe some balance problems and all those kinds of things. And he came out of surgery fine, and he's recovering and going through the different kinds of therapies that he has to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he's well enough that he's going to be able to go back home and continue on with those therapies back home. And the picture that I saw on Facebook that was shared were some firemen from the town that came and visited him. And I don't know, it didn't say in the story if they were paramedics or whatever and they were going to bring him back. I don't know. But just the picture, that the people surrounding him, and he kind of has a kind of a smile on his face, with all that work in the brain and everything. It's still hard to get the muscles going, but just seeing that picture and knowing the story behind it just seemed like there's hope for him. At least there's hope for him to go home for a while and see his grandchildren.
So you saw a hopeful situation after a serious illness. Good.
Yeah.
What about anybody else? Where did you all see hope this week?
So one of the things that I feel like I've been worried about lately is just obviously with it being stewardship season, we're trying to make ends meet here at the church with like all the different things that we're looking to do. And like, to me, I saw hope in that, like at our last week's meeting, like going over the budget and looking at all the different pledges that have come in, like we're getting there, right? We're halfway through and we had half the pledges and looking at like half more people that had pledged last year. So like, I feel like I saw hope in just looking at the progress that we've made so far and seeing people pledging that hadn't pledged in the past. So
oh wow, awesome.
I saw hope in others believing in the work that we're doing at CPC, and hopefully continue to see more hope as we finish out the month here for sure.
That's great. Fantastic. Anyone else?
I saw hope this week. I sold my house as of this morning officially.
Oh,
And we've agreed to terms, and my hope was that this couple will love the house as much as Steve and I did, and that they'll preserve it. And that just gave me a great deal of hope that I was doing the right thing and passing it on to them.
is this the people that have the business across the street from you?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep. So it's official. I'll have a contract the first of the year, but we've agreed on all the terms. So
okay.
yeah, bittersweet.
Hmm.
Lots of emotions, but I'm hopeful that
Yeah.
they'll love it and preserve it,
Yay.
and then I find a place to live
Yeah, that too. That
in
too.
time.
At the risk of being redundant, I have to say again about the generosity of people, for people that they don't know, for children that are in need. It's just really rewarding, because sometimes you feel kind of, well, I do feel like, oh my gosh, where are all the kind people doing the kind things? And I'm seeing it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. Great. Well, what I saw this week, David and I have a friend who's a rabbi in Leesburg, and he left his pulpit in not great circumstances and wound up in arbitration with the synagogue. And there were some very clear violations that had happened, and so it was not a pleasant experience for him at all. And the arbitration went in his favor, and we got his side of the story on the whole thing. But yeah, I trust him that what he is telling us is not exaggerated. So to see that the wheels of justice moved, that was a very hopeful thing, because I said to him when they invited us to a document burning Sunday afternoon. David obviously couldn't be there, but I went, and I said to him, every Sunday I get in my pulpit and I preach about God's justice and righteousness. It's so nice to see it happen. It really is. And it's for him personally. It was his own personal struggle and his own righting a wrong that happened in his professional life, but it's a little glimmer. and it's good to see. So I felt hopeful seeing that. Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad everybody managed to see hope. That's fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna go to well, I'm gonna try. Oh crud. Okay, I'm going to go to a whoops, the video for this this particular session. So it's about 5 minutes of the woman who wrote the curriculum. Can y'all hear it okay?
Yeah.
Grace and peace to you. My name is Charlene Jin Lee. I am a practical theologian. I teach spiritual leadership and pastoral identity formation at the Graduate School of Theology at the University of Redlands. My teaching vocation is born out of my own profession of faith that believes that God calls all of us who follow Jesus Christ to live generously and graciously towards others the way God lives towards us. It's been my joy to think and reflect on the theology and the practice of hope as we seek to follow Christ in our daily lives. Have you ever encountered hope through the caring, loving actions that somebody has extended to you? We see this account of a young man who was hopeless in the physical paralyzed condition of his body. We find his story in the Gospel according to Mark chapter 12. And a community of people offer their hope and their love and their faith by doing some radical things to be able to bring this young man to the feet of Jesus Christ. And it is on the basis of the people's faith and their hope in Christ that Jesus Christ offers healing and a new life for this young man. So in this third aspect of practicing hope in our lives, I invite us to consider what it's like to offer and receive hope in this communal sense of hope in Jesus Christ. There is a wisdom from African traditions that have long guided communities. My hope is your hope. My pain is your pain. My wealth is your wealth. Your salvation is my salvation. God calls us to a beloved community of hope where there is this radical economy of grace that is offered and shared, received and given. And I've been reflecting on this idea of shared hope, even borrowing hope from one another, as I think about how we experience and practice hope in our lives. And my pastor friend and his experience captures this idea or this theological imagination of borrowing hope in this community. Some years ago, he was visiting a church member's son who was dying in hospice care. He was dying of AIDS, this young man. His body was frail and weak. And he looked up to the pastor who was now visiting him, and he confessed, I have no hope. I have lost hope, and I don't think I believe in God anymore. I have lost faith, and even as I face death, I have no faith. My friend, the pastor, moved by compassion, reached out his arms and said to the young man, that is okay, son. Lean on my faith. I've been walking closely with God, and I have sure hope in God who is watching over you. So take my hope and lean on my faith in God who sees you and calls you child. May we know the blessing of this kind of borrowed hope, that when we have no hope of our own, that we can look to a community that those of us who have been able to persist and profess a hope in God of all hopes, that we can be ones to whom others can lean upon. And that sometimes we will be that pastor who can confidently confess, lean on my hope. And sometimes we will be that young man who has no hope or faith left of our own, and we can lean on the hope of another. May we share hope by offering and receiving the hope in Jesus Christ with one another.
Okay. All right. That one. Reactions to that. Anybody have any thoughts about that? Also, it's Mark chapter 2, not chapter 12, which we're going to get to in a minute.
I thought it was very moving when the pastor said, lean on my hope, that he knows that the person is a child of God. I thought that was pretty moving.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly haven't gone through a tremendous amount of like actual hardship in my life right now, but it's nice to know that just simply surrounding yourself with the people, you know, that do trust in God and do have hope. It's just nice to know that you can certainly lean on the hope of others when things may be dark and gloomy. You have that communal body to associate with and certainly have trust in everybody's communal hope. I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Guess I never really thought about it, that leaning on somebody else's hope, but I guess that is what you do when you show compassion. You share your hope, you kind of do it, but I never thought about it in those words.
Yeah. Yeah.
That struck me too, especially dealing with someone who has maybe doesn't have any hope or faith.
Yeah.
Leaning on the other person.
Yeah. Good. Well, we are going to look, I'm going to skip that one. Okay. David has a definition of biblical hope, which is trusting that God will fulfill the promises God has made and then acting according to that trust. So we're going to move on to the scripture passage that she referenced is Mark chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. I'll go ahead and read this. This is right after, this is just, Jesus just jumps right into it. He returned to Capernaum several days later. The news spread quickly that he was back home. Soon the house where he was staying was so packed with visitors that there was no more room, even outside the door. While he was preaching God's word to them, 4 men arrived carrying a paralyzed man on a mat. They couldn't bring him to Jesus because of the crowd, so they dug a hole through the roof above his head. Then they lowered the man on his mat right down in front of Jesus. Seeing their faith, Jesus said to the paralyzed man, "My child, your sins are forgiven." But some of the teachers of religious law who were sitting there thought to themselves, "What is he saying? This is blasphemy. Only God can forgive sins." Jesus knew immediately what they were thinking, so he asked them, "Why do you question this in your hearts? Is it easier to say to the paralyzed man, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or 'Stand up, pick up your mat and walk'? So I will prove to you that the Son of Man has the authority on earth to forgive sins." Then Jesus turned to the paralyzed man and said, "Stand up, pick up your mat, and go home." And the man jumped up, grabbed his mat, and walked out through the stunned onlookers. They were all amazed and praised God, exclaiming, "We've never seen anything like this before." So, what stands out to you in this story?
They would dig a hole in a roof to put somebody down in front of Jesus. That always struck me as, wow.
That's dedication, isn't it?
Yeah.
If I were the homeowner, I don't think I'd be happy at that. Anybody else? Anything stand out to you?
Well, not only that he was healed, but that he could jump up and grab his mat and get out. I mean, because if you've ever been like sick in bed for a couple of days, it's like it's really trying. Your muscles just have forgotten what to do.
Yep.
So, not only could he walk, he just leaped up and went on out of there.
Yeah. A lot of energy in that. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that part, but you're right. Yeah. And if he'd been paralyzed, did his muscles even work?
Well, because I know I've heard that story, but I don't remember hearing that that he got up and he walked, but I didn't picture it being so with such vigor or,
Yeah.
or however it was said.
Yeah. He was pretty enthusiastic, that's for sure. Leaped right up. Where do you see hope being offered or received?
His sins were forgiven. That'd be a big thing.
Okay.
He was healed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hopeful. Anything else? We've got more questions, so if you're not coming up with anything, we've got opportunity for more. Why do you think Jesus forgives the paralytic's sin after seeing the faith of his friends? That is an interesting question.
If we're in a community
Mm-hmm.
and we're surrounded by people of faith,
Mm-hmm.
I would think that the person, the paralyzed man, also had that faith.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a big assumption, but
So are you questioning about is your thought surrounding the paralytic's sins being forgiven?
no, it's more, does he have the same faith as his friends?
Oh.
But I guess most of the time you surround yourself with friends who have similar faith or similar morals, ethics.
Mm-hmm. So I remember this particular passage when I was in seminary. I was taking we took preaching classes, and there was a classmate of mine named Blair, and he was from Scotland, and he chose this particular passage, and he preached a first-person sermon on this passage, and his perspective was one of the religious leaders who was in the building watching this happen. And he said that, he described the dust falling down and, the dirt clods landing on the ground, and, people kind of, that's landing on me kind of thing. And then people sort of scattering when they saw the mat, the litter that the man was on, being lowered down through the roof, and everybody's looking at all of that and looking at all the commotion, and folks getting out of the way and getting dust out of their hair, and the guys lowering, but and everybody's looking at him coming down. But Jesus, it says Blair, and in the person of the religious leader, is looking up. He's looking, he's not, he sees the guy coming down, but he's not really paying attention to him so much. He's looking up at the people lowering the man down. And I don't remember where he went with it beyond that. I just remember his Scottish brogue talking about that. So who has carried you during difficult times?
2021 was a difficult time after Steve's passing, and I was surrounded by so much love from family and friends and my church family, and they carried me. There were days when I just thought, can't do this, can't go on, or just don't feel right, just don't feel up to it, and just lots of love surrounding me got me through. And God kept talking to me like, you can do this. I'm with you. I'm carrying you.
Mm-hmm.
And he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
When have you shared hope and carried others in their times of need?
I think it's in when people explain a problem and you're able to help them, or you're able to just be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes just being present is important to people, or helping them through a problem that they've encountered. It might seem easy to you, but it's not easy to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Everybody knows everybody's got a million and one things going on in their life, but if you can carve out the time to just listen, just to listen to somebody, and to give your 100% undivided attention to them and just listen to them and their feelings, I think that certainly goes a long way.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And many times throughout this last year and a half, I have shared with other people that maybe didn't have as much faith and hope.
Mm-hmm.
So God has carried me in it. And I remember talking with David about this, and he said that it's almost like it's a stage of grieving, like it's the last stage where you use your grief in a way to serve others.
Yeah.
And I think I've tried to do that, just by saying God has carried me through, the darkest days of my life, and he will carry you to, just lean on him. Because it's never been comfortable for me to talk about my faith, but boy, that comes from my heart, and I can talk about my faith easily in that way.
So that's changed for you.
It has.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and Bertha, you can probably answer this one. Where do you see groups of people offering hope to those who need it? Got a good example of it?
Being redundant once again. Well, and even like our mission committee, we put out the plea to help the Ark family, and and then Amy and Joni and Kathy and I went and wrapped the gifts, and it was just like, we just hope that family has a great Christmas.
Yeah. Yep. I was going to share something with you all that she wrote in the leader's guide that David sent to me. Okay, the faithful hope of a community lifts this man, speaking of the Bible passage, lifts this man from despair to wholeness. Poor people among the community picked up the corners of this man's mat and placed their hope in Jesus. They believed in Jesus' power so wholeheartedly that they organized a radical plan to bring him to Jesus' feet. When this man's hope had run out, the community shared their hope with him and literally picked him up from his helpless condition. Nothing in the text gives us a clue about the personal faith of the man on the mat. The man says no words, seeking Jesus' mercy. He does not profess, Lord, help me. There was no condition given to the man on the mat, no interview to measure his merit for a miracle. There was no examination about his correct beliefs or even that he had placed his hope in God. For it was when Jesus saw their faith was enough. Their hope in Jesus was enough to share with this man, enough to fill the gaping hollowness swallowed up by years of crushing pain. God calls us to be the beloved community, to carry one another's burdens, to see one another's pain, and to generously share our prized treasure of hope found in Jesus Christ. All right, so now we're going to do a little exercise here, and we're going to get to Luke 1. So you can go ahead and look it up if you want to, but don't, because this is the Te Mgnitsita. And this is the story of the hope that Mary and Elizabeth share with each other when Mary discovers herself to be pregnant with Jesus. So look at these phrases here. And if you got a pencil or a piece of paper, write down which colors you think go first. Put them in order. So just take a minute or two, look at each of those. Like I said, please don't look it up. We're going to get to it in a second here. But go ahead and order the colors as to which of these goes in which order. And we'll get to
No,
what?
I've just been in a Bible study on Mondays, and for the last 3 weeks, we've been going over the main women of this story.
Uh-huh. Oh.
And so I'm not going to tell you right now what the colors are, but I think I know what they are.
You think you got it right. You think you got it right. Okay. Well, let's see if everybody else is confident like that as to what order this goes. So Luke 1, 39, 49. A few days later, Mary hurried. Oh, shoot. Okay. So you need to go back up one. Mary is visited by the angel Gabriel is not in this story. All right. So that has happened. So if you were confused about where that goes, that's first. Okay. A few days later, Mary hurried to the hill country of Judea, to the town where Zechariah lived. I almost said 40, to the town 40 where Zechariah lived. That's not right. She entered the house and greeted Elizabeth. At the sound of Mary's greeting, Elizabeth's child leaped within her, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. Elizabeth gave a glad cry and exclaimed to Mary, God has blessed you above all women, and your child is blessed. Why am I so honored that the mother of my Lord should visit me? When I heard your greeting, the baby in my womb jumped for joy. You are blessed because you believed that the Lord would do what he said. And Mary responded, oh, how my soul praises the Lord, how my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. For he took notice of his lowly servant girl. And from now on, all generations will call me blessed. For mighty is the one, for the mighty one is holy, and he has done great things for me. All right, how'd you do? Did you get them in mostly the right order? Just, I bet you did.
Pretty good.
Yay. Good. All
Even
right.
the first one that wasn't on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have looked ahead at that and given you a heads up and given you that first one. Okay, I'll give you one. You figure out the rest. Yeah, sorry about that. I should have checked out for that. So what images or phrases stand out to you in that story and why? I'm not sure. Anything specific that jumps out at you? You've heard this a lot, and you always hear it around this time of year too. So when you have big news to share, who do you turn to first?
The people closest to you.
Mhm.
I would agree with that.
Do sometimes, okay, those closest to you. So, and I'm assuming that when you say that, you say people who are personally close to you, people who are close to your heart. Have you ever gotten good news and just turned to the person standing next to you, even though they are a total stranger, and said, blah?
Not really, but
No. You're going to respect their boundaries.
I don't know. Sometimes I've been standing in a grocery line and something like that, you know, like a baby's born or something. I have a baby.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just,
I was thinking of something like that. You know, the strangers are in a line or they're near, and they get good news and they just go, blah. Yeah. It's probably not something that happens very often. And yeah, I think when you get good news, you want to go to your close personal people first. So why do you think Mary went to stay with her cousin Elizabeth when she was first pregnant?
that seems so weird because it basically mentions that immediately after she heard from the angel, she
Mhm.
went to go see her cousin Elizabeth.
Mhm.
And I guess I wonder about that. I wonder if it was so that it was credible that she was a virgin, that she hadn't been with anybody.
Okay.
I don't know. Would you just go and I mean, if the angel said you were going to have a baby and you're a virgin, would you just run back to your mom?
Hmm.
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 I mean, maybe, but
That's an interesting point, Dustin, because I heard a commentary one time that suggested that Mary took off to go spend time with Elizabeth and Zechariah because it was safe. And not necessarily because she was close to Elizabeth. We have to kind of assume that because we are not really given any kind of clue from from Luke or really any other gospel who Mary's close friends were. So someone was speculating that she may have run to Elizabeth because in that particular culture, being pregnant and not married, it was grounds for being stoned to death. And we can assume this is maybe before she told Joseph. I don't know. Joseph is in Matthew, not in Luke. But so maybe she thought, ooh, I need to get out of here. And so she went to stay with Elizabeth for safety, which would suggest she had a good relationship with her because she would go to Elizabeth
right.
seeking shelter, seeking protection.
Well, now she had been kind of in a convent, basically, situation before, right? And so
Yeah.
this was like pretty much her first year she's out on her own.
Who? Mary?
Mary.
Um, I don't know that I've ever heard that.
Well, I mean, because I thought she was in the care of the synagogue or the church.
Well, if she was first engaged, she would have been living with her parents. And she would have been in the care of the community in which she grew up, in which she was living. I mean, if we're talking about, community being people, like a small town, everybody knowing everybody else, she would, I had not heard that she was under the care of the synagogue. That's interesting.
Well, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I don't know. I had not heard that. I'll have to look that one up. But she's definitely, she's got some news to share. So I'm going to jump down to the last question, because we're kind of getting close to, well, we got about 15 minutes, but there are other things we need to do. What are key takeaways from this story about offering and receiving hope?
Well, Mary is carrying God.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty hopeful situation for the whole country.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? Anybody else?
Maybe just being there to support one another.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case, because Elizabeth was considered beyond the age of being able to have a child. So Elizabeth is probably, I heard somebody say one time, in the culture of that day, Mary would have been around 14, 15. Elizabeth would have been around she'd have been pushing 30, if not actually 30. And when I heard that, I was almost 30 and I was pregnant. And I thought, what do you mean I'm too old? I was a little offended. But yeah, so Elizabeth she was barren, like Hannah and Rachel before, in the Old Testament, those stories in the Old Testament. And yeah, so strange pregnancies have happened to the two of them. And so I think giving each other support is probably, yeah, a big part of that. Hey, guess what? You too? Yeah.
Oh, and it's their first.
Yeah, for both of them. Yeah.
So they haven't been mothers before.
Nope.
So
And
yeah, you would like.
Yeah, one of them is not sure how this happened, and the other one is like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Right.
And they're commiserating with one another because
Yeah.
they're pregnant, and they're sharing symptoms maybe, and
Yeah, probably.
fears and hopes and
Yeah. Well, and the joy of it all too. And I mean, that's pretty much what this whole story is about. Mary goes on to say lots more than what is listed in there. It goes all the way to verse 55. And the song that she sings, scholars line it up next to Hannah's song in 1 Samuel, the song that she sings when the Lord hears her prayers for a child and delivers on the promise. Hannah and Mary sang a very similar song. Okay, so moving on then. There are some groups, the Colombian Accompaniment Program. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, hey, whoops. Okay, let's undo that. Program. Okay, this is something from the accompaniment program is something from Presbyterian Peace Fellowship, which is an organization within the Presbyterian Church USA that really emphasizes peace and things to do for peace. And they have two different programs that they're working on right now. One is in Colombia, and the other is in Agua Prieta, which is in Mexico, Sonora, Mexico. And this is what they do, accompaniment. As Presbyterian Peace Foundation uses the work, accompaniment means being physically present at the invitation of local partners in places where violence exists or has been threatened, so that by proximity to the power accompanies, let me try that again, so that by proximity to the power accompaniers represent, partners feel and are safer. Kind of sounds like Mary going to Elizabeth, doesn't it a little bit?
Mhm.
I need somebody to have my back here. And so in these two particular partnerships that the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship has, these in this one place in Colombia, in North Colombia, and Agua Prieta in Sonora, two places in the world that are in the past have been very, very violent, and people who are living there are not safe. And so this arrangement is the folks who are in those places offer an invitation to these Americanos, Norteamericanos, to come down and be with them. And in a way, it's like being a witness to the lives that these people are living, so that those who are inclined to do or be violent see that, oh, hey, there's somebody there who's watching. And so I think the idea behind it is to prevent violence. So here's the three commitments that accompaniment go through. Presence has been requested because local partners believe it will increase their safety. Your presence says someone cares about what happens here. They spend a month with local partners, bearing witness to their experiences. Accompaniers serve as a megaphone, amplifying the voices of people who may be silenced or ignored by those in power. For many accompaniers, this means presenting on their accompanied experiences at their places of worship, sharing with community groups, and writing to their representatives, making sure to center the voices and perspectives of those who are building peace in their own communities. And accompaniment is advocacy. Wherever you serve, a key part of your work will be engaging in advocacy after you return to the US. It may mean writing to legislators, signing letters and petitions, or other advocacy actions suggested by global partners to move the US government away from participation in violence toward peace and humanity. So it's kind of a sort of a two-pronged action. The first prong is to go into the communities at the invitation of people who want you there to witness, and to kind of almost be like a living barrier or a living, it's kind of like when you've been picked on by somebody and you say, I'm going to go get my brother, that kind of thing. And then, you know, a megaphone amplification for sharing stories and a way to accompany folks or to take action once you get back to the United States. So there's that. And oh, here we are. All the stuff that was on the website. When we were in Ohio, we had a relationship with the Presbytery of the North Coast of Columbia. I don't think this is the same Presbytery. This might be somebody else. But this was in '96, and we sent partnerships back and forth between the United States and Colombia as a way to, you know, just see how each of us were living and doing ministry as Presbyterians in different parts of the world. And I guess it would seem that the folks that went down there were potentially going into some pretty dangerous places. I like that peace signed is not peace realized. And this is agua prieta. Interesting thought to just, be a physical presence will change some people's behaviors.
Yeah, I can certainly see how that would give people hope in the sense that when you feel that powerless,
Yeah,
just having the support from the people to bring a voice to you when you feel like you have literally nothing, like nothing going your way.
right,
um
right,
how much that would certainly matter
right.
when you feel like they've got your back.
Yep.
That last sentence, someone cares about what's happening here, is so powerful.
Yep. Okay. Didn't realize we had all of this on these slides. I didn't have to go there, but anyway. Okay. So that's one thing that Presbyterians are doing in the world as far as sharing hope with each other. We share hope in our own congregation with prayer ministries.
Yeah.
How does someone get on the prayer list? I don't know that. I assume people get in touch with David or with you, Sue.
Or they can send an email,
Oh, right. Forgot about that.
or like for Furnace Mountain, you can put it on the live feed.
Right.
That
Yeah, they usually share it with David, either through the Wednesday night prayer group or through a text or an email. And the prayer and care team is in constant touch with him, and they may know something and share with him as well.
Prayer and care team is really awesome.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that I'm just so impressed and just a little jealous. What other kinds of ministry of caring happens at our church?
oh, you have the coalition, all those acronyms and things that you were
right,
talking about earlier.
Our alphabet soup of people that we're helping, right?
Yeah. I think also though, like the youth group, the youth fellowship that you have, I think that the food banks or the even after the service when you have the potlucks and things like that, it's caring about people.
Food is an amazing ministry.
They
Yeah.
have the freezer meals. Obviously, we've got the freezer meals that, when people need a helping hand, we have, Richard, who's graciously organized that.
Yeah.
So,
It's been put to use.
yeah, it has.
And also when people are in need of something, they can mention what that need is, and the congregation tries to meet at least part of that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yep.
What do you think of that?
As far as being on the list, I think it's just knowing that somebody else cares and somebody else is praying, where you have more than one person
Yeah.
praying.
Yeah.
And then you hear of recovery and healing, and you know that prayer can work. Prayer works.
Yeah. Resolution to issues.
Yes.
This is an interesting question. This comes from the study. If someone doesn't want to be prayed for, what do we do?
How would they know if we did?
Ooh.
They might not know they need it, but we might know.
That's a stealth prayer.
Well, I know there are people that don't want to be on the prayer list, even though they have needs. But
Yeah. Yeah, and we need to
just have
respect
to
that. I
respect
mean, for
that,
some
right.
folks, it's a privacy issue.
right, right.
Concerns for privacy and
Yeah.
concerns for their family, maybe concerns about their employment, things like that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm always, it's always a good idea to ask people.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because we had somebody get really upset that they were put on the prayer list without being asked. It's like, oops,
Mm.
yeah, you know.
Wait, I got on the prayer list once and I didn't even know why.
Oh, really? Huh.
I don't know. I think my leg was bothering me or something minor. And somehow Joni said, Bertha, parent care's worried about. I said, what?
Hmm.
She said, well, you're on there for this month.
And I think in our hearts and sometimes in the prayers, we will do it not just for one person, but for a group of people.
Yeah.
People having COVID, you might not mention everybody who has COVID, but you mention that you bring up all the congregation who needs healing.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, when David does the prayers, it's something he started doing, I think, when we were in Dayton. He would get specific requests from people in worship and he'd write them down. And then he would kind of say, so if someone mentioned someone by name, you'd list out the whole relationship to everybody. And then he would say, who lost their job. And he'd say, for people who are without work. So instead of mentioning the individual or what the specific concern is, it'd be sort of a category of,
Right.
That's something that I think that kind of covers things. I mean, it takes care of the privacy issue, and it also covers the particular need. When Furnace Mountain was worshiping via Zoom for 15 months, I recorded the whole service, but I got to the point where when I asked for prayer concerns, I'd pause the recording. And then, so people who were saying specific things about specific people, I would write them down, I typed them down. And then when we gathered all of those and we went back to the next thing, I'd start the recording up again. It's not easy. I haven't quite figured out how to do that on Facebook Live. Anyway, but yeah, so it's just, kind of a privacy issue. Okay, we're getting close. We are actually past time to be done. So let's go ahead and finish up. Let me see. Okay. What can be, well, these are not questions that are on the slides, but this is one that's in the study guide. What can a person do, or what can be done to encourage sharing hope?
Sharing your own hopes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my hope is that someday I'll actually have my house clean.
I've given up on that one. I'll clean my house when we move. Oh, Well, this is something that it's a ritual that what's going on? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna broaden this out so we can see who all was on here. Okay, it's Logan, Sue, Desta, and Bertha. So this is something that one of the committees that I serve on in the presbytery does, is the person who names somebody and says, share hope. and then everybody says that person's name. We bear one another's burdens. And then that we just keep doing that until everybody has been named. And then we get to that last part there. So I'll start. And so Desta, share hope. Okay, now we all say Desta.
Molly, we bear one another's burdens.
Okay.
And then I say, Logan, share hope.
We bear one another's
One another's
burdens.
burdens.
Sue, share hope.
We share what bear
We share
one
one another's burdens.
Bertha, share hope.
We bear one
Bear one another's burdens.
burdens. Molly. Share hope.
Okay. We bear one another's burdens. Friends, share Jesus. Bear one another's burdens.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you all for being here.
Well,
And-
thank you
so
for
much,
pinch
Molly.
hitting.
You're welcome. I'm hoping I don't have to do this next week.
So
Well-
did you
I'm not
Did you do it?
anticipating it.
did you do it last week? I confess
Yeah.
that I missed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Well,
did it last
after
week.
after we finished recording, Richard said, "Why don't we go get something to eat?" And I said, "Okay," because he said, "Did you have dinner? We didn't." So I went to dinner instead of.
Yeah. Oh, I came home and I immediately made myself something to eat. So. Yeah. All right.
I'm
Well, thank you all for being here. And David is planning on coming home on Friday. So the chances are really good. He'll be doing this next week and finishing it up. If you
So his
have to be out, huh?
His dad did got to rehab.
Yes, Dad's back in Concordia. Where it all started. I have to admit, I'm a little anxious. But he seems to be doing so much better than he was this time last week.
So he went there yesterday. Was it yesterday? Monday.
They went back today. He went back today.
Okay.
And so David was out he was with us a little bit during the prayer service. So he went out to go get something to eat, and he's gonna go home and sleep because he really hasn't slept much in the last
I
week.
bet.
It's
Is
kind of
that
like having a
short?
newborn again. Dad was up and down a lot because of the digestive upset.
Is that long-term, Molly, or short-term?
Don't know yet.
Okay.
Don't know yet. The doctor ordered it, so we'll see. Don't know. But we're all planning, the three of us, the Douthets that are here, we're gonna let me stop recording.